What's up, Freccero fam? So I've lived in LA for years now, and especially with me being big into the nightlife and the entertainment scene, I've gotten this question numerous times. This has been a very highly requested video, and that is, what's it like to live in LA? What's it like moving to LA? What's it truly like interacting with the people? What are the events like? Is LA really snobby? Is it not? You know, what's the LA traffic like? All these different questions. So in this video, I'm gonna explain to you everything you need to know about the pros and the cons about truly living in LA. Whether your goal is to move here, or whether you're just curious, here's everything you need to know about living in Los Angeles. First off, the layout of the city. Now, I want to start here because I think it's important to mention, well, what actually is LA? I know this is kind of a stupid question, but it actually is kind of relevant to the city and the layout and a lot of things we're going to get into. A lot of other cities I've been to in the entire country, you know, and I travel a lot, as most of my followers know, and I've spent a lot of time in a lot of other areas. Most cities have the layout of the city itself. The weird thing about LA, and I don't know why this is LA really kind of refers to a huge section in Southern California that we just happen to all call LA. But when you zoom in almost, you have everywhere from Santa Monica, West Hollywood, Culver City, Franklin Village, downtown LA, Playa del Rey, Marina del Rey, all these different sections that they all kind of call LA. So the weird thing is, when I think of like Boston, which is basically the city I lived in before I moved to LA, I think of Boston as like, okay, just Boston. Like the area of Boston is Boston. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but that's the way it is. But in LA though, there's not one part on the big map that I'd say, oh, this is LA. When I see a map, I'm like, oh, this huge smudge of all these other cities and all these kind of territories, that whole thing is LA. For me, I live in the Valley in Reseda specifically here in LA, and to some people, the Valley in Reseda is considered LA. To other people, it's not. So that's one thing I want to say, that in the beginning, especially if you're looking to move here, you may notice that, wait a minute, well, it's not that I want to move to LA, it's that, do I want to move to Hollywood, Santa Monica, downtown LA? Do you want to live in the Valley as well? Do you want to go maybe more southern LA, like I said, by like Playa del Rey or Marina del Rey, or even southern that to like Torrance, for example? So LA is basically this huge kind of circle you see on a map of all these different territories. The cost. Now, this is probably the biggest question that most people have, or that they always ask me, especially because when you think of LA, you usually think of all these fancy cars and houses and glamour celebrities and blah, 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 and that usually gets associated with money. The weird thing about LA is that in some ways it's actually very inexpensive, or pretty much just normal compared to most cities, but obviously in other ways, super, super expensive. So what I will say in terms of like going around, going to different stores and everything, I think in LA, you see the biggest, almost lifestyle in any other area I've ever been to. You can literally see the most souped up McLaren right next to a really crappy 1996 Toyota that the whole thing's destroyed. So it's interesting seeing that huge gap, and as a result of that, as you can imagine too, you have these stores that you can walk into where the prices of the clothing and equipment and whatever it is outrageously expensive. But then you can go to other stores that things are actually cheaper than most cities I've been to in the entire country. So I will say that first off, that when it comes to the cost of living, it's not that it's always expensive, it's always cheap, it's that you have a huge variety of almost different incomes depending on what area of LA you go to, and a lot of stores are associated with that. When it comes to rent, I will say the rent is pretty pricey. Like I said in the beginning, LA is kind of this big circle of all these different territories, and depending on where you live, it can be more expensive or less expensive. As you can imagine, living in like Beverly Hills is a lot more expensive than living in the Valley. It does depend on where you go, but overall, I will say that the cost of living in terms of the main rent, definitely a lot higher than most cities. Now, for me, being from Boston and everything, Boston rent is also obnoxiously high. So when I moved here, I was kind of used to that. I will say that, like, I was kind of used to being like, okay, I have to spend minimum $800 or $900 a month. Probably won't include utilities and might or might not include a parking spot. I was kind of used to that. That's a very minimum price, you know, especially if you get roommates and everything like that. So that's, I'd say, pretty standard. I'd say, especially if you want to look for like a single or a studio, look at anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 minimum. If actually you get obviously more roommates, it does make it cheaper. I'd say if you're getting roommates, you're probably looking at anywhere from maybe $800 to $1,000 if you want to include everything from not just rent but the utilities and potentially a paid parking spot. So obviously depends place to place. But overall, that to me was kind of standard in Boston, so it was very comparable. If you look at the entire rest of the country, this would be a lot more expensive than most cities. Now, when it comes to normal living expenses in terms of like gas, food, that kind of stuff, I'd say food and drinks and clothing pretty standard in LA compared to every other place. I've even noticed that I feel like there's more thrift shops here in LA compared to other cities that I've been to. So I will say that in general, living expenses is pretty similar compared to most cities. Maybe a little bit even cheaper, I will say. Gas, definitely more expensive. There's no question there. Gas, I'd say typically, I mean, obviously it's always fluctuating, but gas can easily sometimes be like the cheapest, like $3.80 a gallon. And I've seen most cities be like $2.80 or $2.90 or $3 maybe, you know, but LA LA gas is always gonna be really expensive. The biggest expense that really becomes more apparent, especially when you move here, is going out. Drinks, definitely significantly more expensive than any other city I've been to. And don't get me wrong, like, yes, I am involved in the nightlife scene and the entertainment scene, so obviously, as you can imagine, a drink in a souped up, fancy schmancy nightclub is gonna be a lot more expensive than a dive bar. But even for some dive bars, it's very common to spend $7 or $8 for just like a simple beer, like a Bud Light or something like that. The cost, I think, of going out or the nightlife, even if you're not doing anything that's super fancy and blah, 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 can still be very, very pricey. That's a big annoying thing. Price of drinks, and I think especially food when eating out is obnoxious. I mean, for me, and I can't believe I'm saying this. This would like blow my mind if I said this to myself, you know, before I moved to LA, that I'm now used to spending maybe $14 for just a mixed drink. And not a crazy mixed drink, but just a normal one. That to me is normal now, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's LA. In addition, Lyft and Ubers also are everywhere in LA. Obviously, Lyft and Ubers are pretty much a huge staple in pretty much the world now, making transportation a lot easier, but it's very common to travel way further in LA to go anywhere, right? So it's very common that I may have to take and spend $25 for an Uber one way. Now, granted, I can go with friends, it's cheaper and everything, but it's very common. I'm like, oh, okay, I spent $25 for the Uber just to get there. So I'm already almost $25 in the hole before I even get to my destination. Never minding drinks, never minding if I'm getting food, and in addition, getting back as well. So the transportation costs of that ride sharing in terms of Lyft and Uber can be a lot more pricey, which leads me into one of the worst parts of LA, the transportation. So you've obviously heard about the LA traffic. It's notorious, and unfortunately, it is 100% true. Now, first off, you really do need a car in LA. I mean, I know people who try to maybe just take Lyft and Ubers, or they try to take the public transportation. As a side note, the public transportation here is obnoxious. It's horrible. I know maybe one or two people maybe tried it. We do have a bus system. I don't really know the routes. I've never really taken it. I don't know anything that much about it. And we do have a subway system as well, and they've been trying to promote it, but pretty much public transportation is a no-go here in LA. Just assume that you're never going to take public transportation. I only took it once, and that was for SantaCon, and it was a fun time, but I don't think I'd ever take it again. You know what I mean? It's everyone here gets around either by driving or by Lyft and Ubers. And obviously, as you can imagine, when it comes to driving, you have to pay for parking, and you're trying to find parking, which obviously is obnoxious in any city. But the LA traffic, the big, daunting, scary LA traffic you all hear about is 100% true. The weird thing about the LA traffic, I will say, is that the LA drivers, and this is a huge important thing, worst drivers in the entire country. I've traveled all over, the by far worst drivers in the country. The weird thing about the traffic, not just with the bad drivers, is that it can happen almost at any point in time. If you think of a normal city, I'll keep using Boston as an example, because obviously that's, you know, kind of where I came from. Your typical rush hour times are what? Like maybe 7 to 9 a.m., 5 to 7 p.m. during the weekdays. On the weekends, maybe some traffic late at night, but not really. It gets kind of what you consider the typical rush hour traffic. The weird thing in LA, the rush hour traffic is basically all the time. So any point, and that's what's weird. There's been times that I'll drive at 9 a.m. in the morning, which could be sort of like a peak hour time. Traffic's not that bad. There's other times where it's like, I don't know, 1 a.m. on technically like what, like a Sunday morning / Saturday night, tons of traffic. It could be 8 p.m. on a random Tuesday night. It's completely bumper to bumper all the way down. And that's what does make any sense about the LA traffic. It happens all the time, anywhere, regardless of anything else going on. I mean, also there's like a big event. Yeah, also there'll be traffic congestion around that area. But the weird thing is it can only happen at any point in time for no reason. And you're just like, why is there traffic now? And that's one of the most frustrating parts. Luckily for me, with my job being a DJ, music producer, and a YouTuber, I don't have to constantly go to work every day. I don't have to, you know, constantly be traveling and doing all this stuff. I do go to a lot of events, but luckily they're usually in traditionally non-traffic-ish hours, or there's usually a little bit of a lower traffic. But it's weird how there are some times I'll, like I said, go to an event on a Wednesday night at 9 p.m., which in every other city it would be dead, and it's straight bumper to bumper all the way there. And I'm like, why is there traffic right now? Another thing about transportation, which confused me and still does actually, this is something I probably will never completely grasp, is everybody here in LA uses miles versus time. When I mean, I've said this in other videos, if I ask you, oh, hey, how far is this place? Everyone here will use miles as the descriptor. They'll be like, oh, it's 16 miles away. And yeah, maybe I'm starting to get some concept of what 16 miles means, but to me, it's like trying to almost learn like a new temperature. Like I'll say no Fahrenheit. This is so much trying to learn Celsius, because in Boston or pretty much anywhere else I've ever been, if I say, oh, how far is this closest place, they're like, oh, it's 20 minutes, it's 30 minutes, and it's an hour and a half. They'll use some type of time measurement because, as you can imagine, driving a certain distance in the heart of a city versus on a highway, two completely different times, right? As you can imagine, 10 minutes on the highway, you can go a lot further than 10 minutes in the major city. So it's weird that when it comes to LA, they only use miles to describe something. Oh man, it's 6 miles away. And I'm like, okay, but what does that mean for time? I don't, like, is there traffic or not? You know, is this 6 miles in the deep part of the city, or is this 6 miles on the 101 or the 405, right? I don't know. And even going along with that too, with the transportation, something about LA people, and I think Saturday Night Live did like a whole skit about this with the Californians, they're so obsessed with different routes to get there. I mean, when I lived in Boston, you have 90, 93, 95. Those were really like the main three. And no one really got obsessed. They just be like, oh yeah, we're gonna go. What's the best way to go there? Oh, you could probably take 93. You take exit 7. Everyone here in LA always gets obsessed with like, there's a bajillion different roads. The 405 is the main one. That's the main one that you hear about that's usually the worst for traffic. But it's everything you have like, I mean, I could ramble on all the roads. It's kind of weird. But people here get so obsessed with just like all the different routes you could take. You're like, oh, you're taking the 405? No. You gotta take the 10 to the 5, then be on the 5 for a little bit, then make sure you jump on the 101. Don't go too far into Ventura. Things like that people just get so obsessed with different routes to take. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna use Google Maps. Whatever Google Maps says, that's the route I'm gonna take. On to the events, the good part of LA, right? Because obviously the transportation, not the best. Now the events and basically the nightlife and the living just in general in LA, I absolutely love. You know, that's actually the main reason why I came here. There's always something going on. I mean, for me now, and I'm not exaggerating this, I get invited to 1 to 3 events every single day here in LA. Literally, I reject or say no to 90 to 95% of the things I get invited to, and I'd rather be in that position. I remember in most cities I've gone to, yeah, there's gonna be stuff going on during like the weekend, but during the week, it's usually a little bit more dead. What's weird about LA, which, you know, just kind of the culture and everything, is the weekdays can sometimes be just as crazy as the weekends, if not crazier. I mean, I remember, and we probably all experienced this, you know, depending on where you are, that during the week, you're like, oh, can't wait for the weekend, right? That kind of can't wait for this weekend mentality, right? That you're like, oh, I can't wait for Friday night, can't wait for Saturday night. For me in LA, I've never really experienced that. Like, I'll be excited for an event coming up, but I'll go to an insanely crazy, exclusive nightlife, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it, event on a random Tuesday night, a random Wednesday night. If anything, I find that the best nights to go out in LA, or the nights that are the most poppin', so to speak, are Tuesday and Wednesday night and Thursday night. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, never Friday night. Like, there'll be some events going on Friday night because it's technically the weekend, but I very rarely actually go out on a Friday night. And then Saturday night, obviously. And then sometimes Sunday during the day, for example. I don't know why, but like the Sunday fun day mentality is huge in LA. So it's weird that there'll be some weeks where I'll go out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that's it. There'll be other weeks where I'll go out on a random Saturday night and then a random, I don't know, Monday night. So it's weird how in LA, especially with the events, there's so much stuff going on, but it's not all centered and focused around the weekend. You know, like I said, when I was in Boston, there was nothing going on during the week. You know, maybe 1 or 2 events, maybe, but it's typically like you do the weekend, nothing. Weekend, nothing. In LA, it's pretty much just a steady plateau in a good way of events happening all the time. The one thing I will say though, especially if you compare it to like New York, right? New York will always be New York, is that things here pretty much shut down around 2 a.m. Now don't get me wrong, there are after hours clubs and after hours events, and obviously they're always fun. I love after hours events, but as a city and as a whole, pretty much after 2 a.m., there's pretty much nothing going on for the most part. Now, like I said, don't get me wrong, especially if you're talking about like a house party or like a Hollywood Hills mansion party or after hours clubs, those will be going on till whatever time, right? But in general though, if you're like in a place like New York, at 3 a.m., you could go grab a pizza. You could go grab, I don't know, like food anywhere. You could pretty much do anything at 3 a.m. in New York. Here though, after 2 a.m., besides any after hours clubs or like house parties, the city pretty much just completely shuts down, which in some ways I get, but in other ways can be a little bit frustrating when you're like, oh man, I'm so excited. I just went to this great nightclub. It's now 2-ish a.m. I want to go out and do something. And then you realize, oh, everywhere's closed. There's not really that much going on right now. The only things that are available is kind of this late night club or this house party, but there's really no food. Most like even delivery services stop at 2 a.m. So that is kind of a weird, frustrating thing. You think for like this entertainment hub of the world that is LA, you think that there'd be a lot more happening stuff, so to speak, after 2 a.m. or in terms of it's like after hours. But again, pros and cons, you know, for different cities, different lifestyles. The cool thing is that you have so many different types of events. You have everything from intense fitness, healthy lifestyle conventions, like things like the LA Fit Expo and whatnot, all the way to obviously electronic music events and music events pretty much for any genre you can think of, to obviously movie and acting and red carpet style events, to modeling events, to pretty much any industry you can think of. There's always events going on. And that's one of the good things about, like, again, when it comes to LA, is that literally, especially if you're big on like events events and just going out, there's always something new. There's always some big name brand event that's the biggest in the world that always happens in LA for every single industry. And that makes LA, I mean, honestly, one of the best event cities I've ever been to. Now, the people. This is one of the biggest things that comes up anytime someone asks me about moving to LA or living in LA. And usually, I think most people's perception of people living in LA is that most people are snobby or annoying, or basically the type of people that you don't want to be around. Now, I'm going to break it down when it comes to what other people actually like in LA. So first off, one interesting thing is that, and this is kind of annoying, being honest, pros and cons like anything, but I'd say more annoying, is LA is what I like to call acquaintance city. It's very common, this happened to me a lot, where I'll meet somebody, we'll be super buddy connect. We'll talk for 2 or 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden we just won't talk for months. Okay, yeah, people might say, well, that's the day and age we're living in right now. You know, people are a little more flaky, or, you know, maybe it's just the fact that of getting older and adulthood. But being honest, it's more of an LA thing that you'll meet a bunch of people and have a ton of acquaintances, but have very few people that you're tightly connected with. I find in other cities, it's usually the other way around. You usually have like more friends that you're tightly connected with, and maybe less just like casual friends. You know, I will say though that people who live in LA are some of the nicest people I've ever met in the entire country, and not in a fake way too. Don't get me wrong, and I'll say this, there are always gonna be fake or snobby people in pretty much any city you go to. But I find LA, even with it being this big entertainment hub pretty much of the world, people are generally pretty nice. They kind of do their own thing. And also you always have those groups of good people and groups of bad people. That's true for any city. But I find that in general, people are very nice. However, though, there are, and this is another thing I never really experienced in any other city, there are a decent amount of people who are very, what I like to call opportunistic. They will only talk to you if they think they can get something out of you. Now again, this does exist in other cities, but not the way it is in LA. It's not that people talk and say, hey, you know, can I get a free drink out of this guy or something? It's more of, can this guy or girl propel me or help me get to the next step in my career and my dreams and my goals and everything? If not, they're not worth my time. I have even been in situations where literally people, like right when I meet them, like, oh, what's up, I'm Mark, like, nice to meet you. One of the first things they'll say, or maybe the first thing they'll say is like, oh, Mark, so tell me, like, pitch it to me. Like, what do you do? Like, why should I get to know you? Like, what's your claim to fame? What's your success? And like almost trying to word it as in, tell me what's so good about you that is gonna make me want to keep talking to you. Now, granted, I could always do the typical like, oh, I'm a DJ and I like make you do, like, I could always do some stupid elevator pitch. And again, this probably exists in places like Silicon Valley too, where you almost in a weird way in LA kind of have to be ready to give your like 20-second pitch of who you are, what you do, why you're important, why someone should get to know you, and blah blah blah. Being honest, for me, I feel like, as a side note, anybody who talks to me who only is trying to figure out how I can be more beneficial to them and what my claim to fame is or what my success is and how it can propel them is usually a person I don't want to associate with anyway, regardless of the city or anything. So also that those people do exist, and that is kind of frustrating that when I'm at a party, I'm having a fun time, and I'm just talking to them, trying to get to know people, but you have those people that you could tell are like, okay, unless you can help me, I have no desire to talk to you. So tell me right now what you can do for me. Like, and you're just like, dude, we're just having a drink, just relax, you know? Overall though, I will say that when it comes to the people living in LA, it's one of my favorite groups of people of any city I've been to. You know, like I said, you do have good people and bad people, that's true for any city, but I think it's because one, people here are just incredibly nice, incredibly outgoing. But the second thing is that you meet a lot of very unique people here too. Like I've said before, so many different industries all colliding here in LA. You know, it's amazing that for me, I can go to a parkour event and do parkour and acrobatics with this huge group of super nice and outgoing people who just live, eat, and breathe fitness. And then that night, I can go to a raging EDM nightclub that everyone's there just for electronic music, you know? And then the next day, I can go to some business event where you have a bunch of entrepreneurial, business-driven minds that are trying to create their next startup. And it's amazing that there's so many different types of people here. They have people here pretty much for everybody, and for the most part, all these people too are very forward-driven. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, obviously depends person to person of how they handle that, but it is cool that people here are very driven of like, okay, I want to get to my next goal. I'm very adamant about getting my career further and everything. So I like that very driven mindset combined with everyone being super nice, and it's incredibly easy to meet new people. And lastly, the lifestyle. You know, what is it like just general day-to-day living besides the events and all the people and the cost, transportation? Just what is it like in terms of just a normal day-to-day lifestyle? Obviously, one of the best parts about LA is the weather. You know, that's actually one of the main reasons that I moved here from Boston. The weather's amazing. Even during like the winter, and this is gonna be a very northeast thing I'm about to say, but I mean, people here get so weird about calling it winter, but I mean, it maybe gets to like 50 degrees is like the coldest it will get, maybe 45, maybe. And and people are just like shivering and they're like in their coats and they're like, oh my God, it's so cold. I'm like, it's not even winter. This is like normal. Again, maybe it's a very Bostonian thing for me to say, but the weather here is always amazing, right? In terms of just day-to-day living, you really can't have a bad day. It very rarely rains here too. It never snows. Thank God, I hate the snow. Never snows, so the weather is always gonna be amazing. You know, combined with that too is this unique kind of versatility of LA that, like I was saying before with the events, you can pretty much do anything in any field, period. I mean, you can easily go to the beach and be hanging out at the beach, lying, you know, you could do a workout, or if you just want to relax, you read a book, and you could jump in your car, drive a few hours north, and go snowboarding. And, you know, I'm not a big snowboarder or skier, but I know people say, oh yeah, you know, it's amazing to do a snowboarding out here. I can only wear a t-shirt because it's not as cold, and they kind of prepare the snow themselves. Again, I don't know the science, though, of how they do that, but, you know, you can basically go snowboarding and hang out on the beach on the exact same day. You know, what other city can you do that? Also, as you can imagine, and you've probably heard, LA is huge when it comes to the environment. So things like the plastic bag ban are huge. I think that's kind of spreading, though, throughout the country. But basically, when you go to the grocery store, you'll see tons of people bringing their own bags, because if you don't have a bag with you, they charge you 10 cents for each bag. Granted, it's only 10 cents, you know, but that's why a lot of people are like, hey, you know, I want to bring my reusable bag, or I'll just get this one grocery bag that I've just kept reusing, or whatever it is, you know. And this is true for a lot of other places. Like, for example, if you go to, you know, go to recycle something, it's not just recycling. There's usually like 3 or 4 different styles of recycling buckets, each one being different depending on like the type of material and all this kind of stuff. Wait, is it the red or the blue or the green one? And what does that one mean again? So it is kind of, I mean, granted, like sometimes it does get a little annoying of how intense people are, but at the same time, hey, I mean, it's a good thing, you know, it's protecting our environment. Kind of similar to that too is that people are definitely way more into their health in LA compared to any other city. And it's ironic because LA is a really good place to party in, you know, and I'll say like I love partying here, but the health craze that exists in LA is just off the charts. Compared, as you can imagine, people are always outside, they're always doing active lifestyles and everything. People here are huge into like organic everything, as you can imagine. You know, I think what's the running joke about like avocado toast with organic, I don't know, something, you know, it is true, you know. And for me, also being big into health and fitness, I do like that. I do like the fact that people here are very, very aggressive about being like, look, when I go to a bar, even if I'm drinking, I want to make sure I have something that's really healthy. Even if I'm grabbing some type of like burger, which is considered maybe not the best thing for you, I want to make sure it's grass-fed, organic, and homegrown, farm to table, and blah, blah, blah. So people are absolutely obsessed with working out, with a healthy lifestyle, and especially like having super, super healthy food to eat in general. You have so many, sometimes pretty pricey, but sometimes not, you know, depending on the place. You have so many organic stores out here that are everywhere, all, you know, advertising the best food you can eat and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's all about a healthy lifestyle here. Finishing this video off, you know, I think when it comes to moving to LA or living in LA, do I like living in LA? Obviously, yes. You know, I think overall, just kind of recapping the video, I love it because you have so many different events, you have super nice people, and everything here, especially when it comes to the entertainment industry, is huge, right? It's massive. In terms of the cons, it is the whole transportation thing. I think for me is probably the biggest con when it comes to like the annoying traffic, driving everywhere. I mean, for me, it's not uncommon for me to be like, oh, I'm gonna drive an hour and a half to go to see my friend. In any other city, you'd be like, what? You're gonna drive an hour, go drive an hour and a half for one night? I mean, the amount of miles I rack up in my car here compared to any other city I've been to is off the charts in terms of if you look at it. And especially if you combine that with the traffic, it gets a little frustrating, you know? I mean, I do miss the public transportation aspect too, of like the cost effectiveness and just the ease of it. To spend like $2 or $3, you jump in a train or a bus or whatever, and it just brings you anywhere you want in the city. You don't have to worry about parking or driving or anything. I do kind of miss that, you know? The lifestyle here is amazing, though. You really can't beat it. I mean, there's a very specific reason why I've been here for so long, you know? It's everything you want. It pretty much has everything that you need, you know, for pretty much any industry. And I mean, and that's why for most entrepreneurs, most forward-thinking people, for people who are chasing their dreams, LA is the #1 spot they go to.